Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to every single one of you. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Hope your Monday is going rather well as well. Or your Tuesday for some of you folks now. Hello, how is everybody? Let's have a little look in the chat and see who we've got with us tonight. It seems like we've got a nice little crowd in nice and early. Kodos was in nice and sharp. Hello, Kodos. How are you doing? We've got Ian there as well. Lord Maiden, good evening to you. We've got Jimmy Moresco. Good evening, buddy. Paul Taylor's in as well. Blair Smith. Good evening to both of you. We've got Peter Koeman, we've got Blizzards, we've got Christian Reeves. Hello to you folks. We've also got Tyler Peck in as well. We have Type 40 TARDIS. Hello, good evening to you, buddy. VJ, good morning as well, after very little sleep from what I've been reading down there, mate. Thank you very much for joining us. We've got Super Pumpkin Man, who I think actually was the first person to comment in the chat today, but it disappears after a while, so thank you very much for coming in nice and sharp. Scott Latham, hello mate, how are you doing? We've got Jefferson J. Thacker, hello, or aka Perham. What shall it be? Shall I be Perham, or shall we just call it, or is it going to be Jefferson tonight? You decide, mate. What do you want me to call you? VJ saying he's going to be doing this one mobile from a toasty warm bed. I don't blame you, mate. I think if I could do this live stream from a toasty warm bed, I think I'd be doing it as well, mate. Tyler Peck saying loving the image. What can I say? I would suggest by the fact that we've got quite a few viewers in, it's intrigued a few people, so it's done its job, hasn't it? Luke Pryor, hello mate, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Wayne Hayward, good evening to you as well. Luke, are you working Expo again this year, mate? I just wondered. I might possibly be making an appearance on the Friday now. I mean, I sound like a public appearance. I just mean I might come down on the Friday for one day. James, good evening to you, buddy. How are you doing? J-Bot says he hopes everyone's doing well. Colin Wakeland, good evening to you as well, sir. Mountain Gremlin Games, nice to see you. Luke says, I hope Andy survived without too much injury after that giant GW sign fell on him. It's the curse, mate. I'm telling you, it's the curse. Joachim, hello to you as well, mate. He's painting some Carnivalian miniatures for tomorrow's game, although he should be working on the painting challenge. Speaking of the painting challenge, I've had quite a few entries already, so thank you very much, folks, to every single one of you who've already entered. If you haven't already entered for this month's painting challenge, you have until Sunday at 11:59 p.m. UK time to get your entry in. If you don't know what it is, we have a painting challenge every month. There's no prize for it. It's not about who's the best painted. It's about challenging you to paint some of your miniatures. And the theme this month, there's a theme every month, but the theme this month for me is come fly with me. So if your model flies, hovers, has wings, has a jetpack, has an anti-grav pack, any of that kind of stuff, if it has magic and it floats by magic, if you can suggest to me why your model is flying or can fly, or it jumps really high or something like that, then it qualifies for the painting challenge. So that is this month's challenge. Who else we got here? We've got Bloggy in. Good evening to you, mate. Nice to see you, fella. We've got Simon Dave in as well. Jim Zom says, greetings to the BlackJack. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much, mate. I'm doing very well. Paul says he's going to try and get his challenge finished tonight while he's watching. Tony Howell, good evening, matey. How are you doing? Andrew Fairbanks, hello to you as well. We've also, it says, I'm always Perham to anyone who isn't my mom. Perham it is, mate, then in that case, I'll have to remember that. Luke says, if you did this live stream from bed, I think you should probably be on OnlyFans. Patreon special, mate, that's what it is. Joe27, hope you're well, Andy, mate. Hello to you as well, mate. Let's have a little look. VJ is saying the title and photo was great bait. I disagree with that term, clickbait and stuff like that. The whole point of a thumbnail and the title is it's meant to intrigue you. It's meant to make you want to click the video. That's the whole point of it. Clickbait is something where you tempt somebody in to click it and then don't deliver on the promise. You know, like when you used to get a lot of these kind of sort of videos years ago which had some kind of scantily clad woman in the thumbnail kind of thing, and then she never appeared in, not that I watched any of them, of course, she never appeared anywhere in the video. That's clickbait. It's trying to tempt you in with something and bait you in with something that's not there. And if it delivers on the message, then it's just good marketing. It's just well titled. So yeah, I know it's kind of it's evolved from that now, but there, so be it. Yeah, Tyler saying, "Oh yeah, I need to get a flyer or something." Simon Davison needs to get something in for the challenge as well. Solvent Abuse UK, please get help. Hope you're okay. VJ saying he hasn't gotten to paint it all this month. Too busy, but more money for his UK trip. Where I'm looking forward to it, mate. So VJ coming all the way from Australia to the UK. Not just to see me, but he's going to see me while he's here. We're going to spend a few days together, so that'll be cool. Looking forward to it, mate. Tony said he's nearly submitted a fish for the Come Fly With Me challenge. The idea amused me. Fly fishing, mate, or a flying fish. I give you that one. Blizzard's on his third attempt. I've painted a few bits and pieces. I showed you all last week my interceptor for firefight. I've also painted a Hornet as well. I just need to take some pictures of it. So yeah, I've actually painted 2 things for it this month. VGC in the flights booked. Fantastic, mate. Paul Rigdon, nice to see you as well, mate. He said he's trying to get one of his Enforcer jet bikes painted before Sunday. You can do it, mate. You can do it. And Luke says, if it's not clickbait, you better deliver. I will deliver, mate. Have I ever not delivered? He says, you outed yourself there, Andy. Andrew says, yeah, if Andy really wanted to clickbait you, we have a picture of him next to a beautiful, scantily clad woman. There you go, see? And then she definitely wouldn't be in the video. Sunderland, good evening to you. Nice to see. He said he's watching football. Param says he hates bait titles, but no, the algorithm forced it to happen. I don't blame the creators. I blame YouTube. Do you know what it is? It's a really fine balance, because it's not a bait title. The whole point of it is you want to. It's like, how can I put it? You know, like trailers for films. You know, if you watch a trailer and it intrigues you and makes you want to watch the film, that's not a clickbait trailer, unless when you went to see the film, it had nothing to do with the trailer, which some films have, to be fair. It's about trying to get people to interact. It's hard enough as it is. There's so much content out there that you like, the whole point. Everything I do really is about trying to sort of entertain you and trying to give you something to be entertained by. If that creates sort of a little bit of buzz and a bit of talk, that's just doing its job. That's the whole point. Ortega, hello buddy, in the rerun I should say. James Sims, do you mean there's not hot singles looking to meet me tonight? Better stay here then. Clearly, hello to you as well, mate. Mountain saying, this is definitely clickbait. I've been watching this for ages and you've not got your kit off. Only quality hobby content. There's not even any BlackJack in it. VJ says, Andy delivers like the milkman, far too early in the morning. I thought you were going to see I come in bottles there, mate. Jess Hunt, good evening, folks. Hello to you, mate. Andrew saying, yeah, yet to talk about Games Workshop yet. Clearly clickbait. There you go. I have mentioned them now. Hello to you, buddy. And Tony's laughing there at Mountain Gremlin Games. So, yes, the plan tonight... as the title says, the curse of GW. I'll be chatting about that. But it's obviously I'm not. You know me. I'm a positive person. I'm not going to be sitting here kind of like slagging off any games companies like Games Workshop or anybody else. There's a wider message around this, but it is. I promise you, it's on target. Simon wrote, Dave, you shouldn't be laughing at those cheeky things. So yes, as I've mentioned before, I will be closing this month's challenge on Sunday evening. So if you are putting a model in, or a figure, whatever it is, if you're putting an entry in, we'll be closing them at midnight on Sunday, and then next Monday's live stream is when we'll be showing them all off. What are we up to here? Lord Maiden says, well, at least Andy doesn't have any priests chasing him. I tell you what, mate, I very nearly kind of put the old exorcist with the cross thing, and I thought, I'm skirting the line with religion here a little bit. I probably best not to go down that route. Jez says, I have a list of 10 reasons clickbait is bad, and number 6 will shock you. Luke says, I came for you, slagging them off. See you later. Paul says, the milkman comment is your OnlyFans clickbait. There you go. That's next week's title. I come in bottles. Paul says, Omnifan says, hobby YouTuber, I'm quitting. Truth, just move studio. Do you know what it is? I have seen that video so many times. That's it. I must admit, I have seen that one a few times. VG says, let's see if we can do some priming today. And then speed paint Friday and Sunday. Nice one, mate. I've been doing some painting as well over the weekend and a little bit today. And I've been painting up my God tier miniatures. So some of you may know, you may not know, there's a creator clash coming up on the 11th of June where myself and 7 other sort of YouTube and Instagram and podcast creators are all getting together for a fight to the death, inverted commas, where we're gonna battle against each other playing God tier by Steamforged Games, and so we don't have to paint our miniatures. The stipulation is basically we just need to take 4 champions to the event, and then each game we choose 3 of them against our opponent. They don't have to be painted. The models come kind of pre-coloured plastic, but as I'm sure you can imagine, the creators are all kind of getting behind it, and so I'm busy painting mine. Haven't kind of fully settled on which ones I'm going to take yet, so I'm just painting the ones that look cool at the minute and working my way through that. Andrew saying, waiting for him to start singing Never Gonna Give You Up. If you've ever heard me singing, mate, you wouldn't be waiting for that, I promise you that. And Tasty Brain Drain says, hey everyone as well. Well, I think that normally I would wait a little bit longer and kind of let the chat fill up and stuff like that, but we do have 90 people in the chat now. I think it's probably not a bad place to kind of start. So let me get my notes up and stuff like that as well. In fact, actually, before we do start, there's something I wanted to kind of show you. Where was it? Let me get this up. I just wanted to bear with me. I must have closed the website down. Here we go. So we were talking about the Dead Zone campaign last week, and the first results are in now. So we can see here we're starting to see some charts now, and I just wanted to. Oh, here we go. I thought it wasn't going to load there. We can start to see. So at the minute, Enforcers have took a little bit of an early win. And over the weekend, these have changed a bit as more games came in. So there's been over 300 games played so far in the first week, which is not too bad at all. Marauders, I'm not surprised. I mean, Marauders have kind of there's the Marauder models have only just really come out for Firefight, and I'm not even sure if some of the new models are in Dead Zone yet. So I'm not surprised there's not a lot of Marauders being played. Rebs is a bit of a surprise for me. Veerman, I am not surprised. Lots of Veerman players because everyone loves the models. But yeah, Enforcer's taken a bit of an early lead there as well. It's and the website now that I'm showing this because this only came up during the week. This wasn't available to see last week. It's nice to see some breakdowns of how games are going on and stuff. Forge Fathers making a rally back there on there. I think that's 22nd. What day is that? It was Sunday, making a rally back there. But you can see over the weekend there's been an increase in the number of games as well. But yeah, looks all good. So yeah, if you are interested in this, it's broken down into control, performance, and insights. And there's a lot of different information. I think this is really cool to kind of see this. You can see the win rates. So Enforcers there, basically 58. They've won 50. Nearly 59% of their games. Rebs have won 60% of their games, nearly 61. So yeah, it's load. If you're a bit of a stat nerd, which I have been known to be in the past, it's quite cool to kind of check this stuff out. So yeah, head over to the Mantic phase, the Mantic campaign website, and you'll be able to see all of that stuff. Scott Latham saying, hit up the likes, everyone. Thank you very much, mate. We've got 100 folks in the chat, 33 likes. I'm sure we can squeeze that one up a little bit. Perham says, no, I need to break down and buy Dead Zone. Thomas Dinkgreave says, painting Caradon Overlords for Warcry and some Salamanders and Terrain and World of Tanks last wave. Want everything pre-painted. Painting is no hobby anymore. It's torture. I think you're not alone in that. There's quite a few people kind of don't necessarily enjoy the painting side. And VG says, interesting watching the Mantic campaign stuff. Good to know it's actual results, unlike when GW did campaigns. You're the second person that said that to me today, mate. And yeah, and VG saying Caradon Overlords are well overpowered in Warcry. I haven't actually I haven't actually played Kharadron Overlords. Either played them as a faction or played against them as a faction. Anyway, let's get on to our main topic, our main chat tonight, and we're talking about the curse of GW. And in fact, I'm going to record this. Let me do it on this screen instead. I'm going to record this just in case I decide to kind of clip this down. Can you remember I used to do the kind of like the little BlackJack clips bits where the stuff we talked about, and I would upload them for the folks I don't want to watch a full stream. I might do that again, who knows. So yes, tonight we are talking about the curse of GW, and what's prompted this conversation, what's prompted this topic, as a lot of stuff does when I'm doing these live streams. I kind of look for things to talk about. Was a Facebook message over the weekend. It might have been Friday. And it was in my community Facebook group, and I'm not going to name the person because they might be in the chat tonight, and it isn't really about them really. It's just about some of the things they've said which reflect things I've heard in the past as well. And it was basically what they said was, I think maybe it's time for a break from GW and its related social media. That I got the FOMO. I need to keep focused on the stuff I'm playing now. I need to remind myself how expensive the books are. I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just thinking out loud kind of thing. And he said, it's a matter of every time I start up with a non-GW game that I love, I can't find many players, and so I need to kind of divorce myself from GW. And this was the thing. And that curse of GW that I'm talking about is that FOMO, the fear of missing out. And what I want to talk about tonight is why do I hear it a lot about Games Workshop? And why do I hear these kind of conversations about how I need to kind of I need to take a step away from it, and I get this fear of missing out when it comes to Games Workshop, but I don't hear it about any other game system. And bearing in mind, yes, Games Workshop is the most popular. There are lots and lots of popular games out there, but I never hear anybody saying, "Oh, I really need to kind of stop buying Infinity models. Like, it's getting out of hand. I keep getting that fear of missing out. I feel like I can't keep up." I never hear it about Mantic Games. I never hear it about Atomic Mass Games. I never hear it about Warlord. All of these different companies, I never ever hear that same conversation about I'm just it's the fear of missing out. I can't kind of I can't not buy something. I never really hear that about the other ones, just from Games Workshop. So we hear a lot people complaining about the price of Games Workshop models. We're seeing they're getting higher and higher. Value and cost is always a subjective thing. What's expensive to one person is absolutely sort of fine for somebody else. So that's always a subjective thing. But you hear as prices go up, it basically becomes a point where more and more people feel it's getting too expensive. People complain about sort of the constant stream of new books being released, the new codexes, the new battle tomes, that kind of thing. They say that it's hard to keep up. The rate of releases is quite high. Some people say the games are unbalanced, and from a competitive standpoint, they're not very they're not very fun to play anymore. They're not in a good place. So if this is the case, I want to explore this. Why do we hear all that, but we always hear about this fear of missing out when it comes to their products? So one thing we could say is it's the limited nature of their product. A lot of the stuff that they release, we would say that kind of it's limited. Once it's gone, it's gone. There's a new box set coming out, and if I don't buy it now, I won't be able to get it later. But I also hear this same kind of thing about, I need to get this latest codex, and the codexes don't kind of sell out. Or I need to get this latest Primera Space Marine box, and they don't sell out. So it's not just the it's not just the stuff that is truly limited. It's this need to have everything on the day it's released. It's this need to have everything that's released. That's the bit that I don't see necessarily from other companies. Obviously I play a lot of Mantic stuff, but I don't feel the need to buy every single model for every single faction for, say, Dead Zone, or buy every single model for every faction for Firefight. I don't feel that kind of fear of missing out. And Games Workshop products are the same. If you want to buy if there's a new army coming out, apart from those kind of one-off boxes, but when it's just the standard release, codexes, that kind of thing, those things won't sell out, but there's always that kind of mad rush for day one release. So I don't really think it's the limited aspect that creates this kind of FOMO. There's more to it than that. Is it the quality of the miniatures that makes people get this FOMO? Is it the fact that the quality of the miniatures, in my opinion, is probably still the best? I think there's a really fine line, and I was watching Discord's Miniatures was chatting on her live stream over the weekend. I kind of had it on the background while I was doing some work, and she was talking about sort of subjectively she didn't think that Games Workshop models are the most kind of are the best quality anymore. I would say they are still the best quality, but I would say it is subjective as to if the aesthetic of the models is for everybody. Are they the best looking models? But from a quality perspective of the quality of the actual, the kind of the moulding, the print, if you like, the actual kind of the physical plastic kind of thing that you're left with, I would still argue that they're still number one in that respect. But I guess people don't. When it comes to kind of the model quality, I don't think that's really driving this fear of missing out. I don't think people are worried about like kind of the quality of models going down the pan in a few weeks' time, so they have to get it now kind of thing. And again, I don't. There are other companies out there making fantastic quality models, so I don't think quality is what's kind of driving it either. Is it the background lore? Is it the fact that people are so like kind of sort of they love the background lore so much that it makes them want to buy more and more models? I'm not really sure it's this either. I mean, other games have really good background lore. You could argue, and again it's subjective, but you could argue that Games Workshop's lore and background is the best out there. I personally don't think it is. It doesn't really do it for me, but I get that other people do, and that's absolutely fine. But I don't think that's what drives people to want to buy kind of sort of every new release. I think that if you look at things like the Horus Heresy that's coming out soon, there are people kind of chomping at the bit and frothing at the mouth about this kind of new Horus Heresy set coming out. And price aside from it, it's generally just more Space Marines kind of thing. And maybe it's lost on me a little bit because I'm not that interested in it. But people like I see people getting pulled into this like I have to buy this kind of thing. Like I was never interested in Horus Heresy before, but now because it's everywhere, I really want it. So you could argue that the background of the Horus Heresy novels and everything else is what's dragging people to really want to pick up this new set. But I would suggest if you're that kind of sort of into the Horus Heresy background, you've probably already picked up some kind of some Horus Heresy models in the past. So I don't think it's that either. Is it the quality of the games? Objectively, from my perspective, I don't think it's the quality of the games. I hear far more people saying negative things about the actual gameplay experience. Even people who absolutely love the game seem to kind of have lots of sort of things to say about it not being very fun, or it's not being very balanced, or it's becoming bloated with lots of books and that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's that. I know people love it, but because I think the vast majority of people like don't play it at a competitive level. I think they play it for fun. They play out narrative stories, and I think they just have fun with it. But I think if you're playing at that kind of more relaxed kind of narrative fun with your friends level, you wouldn't be pulled into this kind of like this need to buy everything type thing. So I don't think it's the quality of their games that's really kind of driving it. Is it the marketing method that GW use? People say that they market really kind of intensely, and I guess if you're a fan of their games, you're probably in a lot of Facebook groups that relate to their games. You're probably you probably follow people on Twitter. You probably follow people on Instagram who are painting their models, for example. You probably follow the Games Workshop community page, or maybe you subscribe to Warhammer Plus. I think if you're not in and around that, you don't necessarily see the marketing. So I don't think their marketing strategy is particularly aggressive in compared to kind of like other sort of products outside of our tabletop hobby. I just think that because they're popular and because there are so many people talking about their product, their marketing is almost generated for them. So I know people might disagree with this, but I don't think they market their games particularly kind of heavier than anybody else. I think the community reaction to what they market amplifies that message kind of 100%. So I don't think it's necessarily the kind of the marketing of GW that causes a problem. Is it a constant release schedule? I think one thing that that gets people like on that kind of hamster wheel is the fact that there's something coming new like all the time, and I don't see any other company releasing at that rate of stuff. So for example, Atomic Mass Games release stuff fairly regularly for Marvel Crisis Protocol, and their models are not that particularly cheap, but I think for all it's quite expensive, it's possible to keep up with every purchase for that game. I think you'd spend a hell of a lot of money doing it, and you certainly don't need to, but I think people who play that game predominantly and probably don't play anything else tend, like some of them will try and keep on that cycle, because the difference is with something like Marvel Crisis Protocol is you can pretty much play any model in the game. Yes, you have your affiliations and things, but if you buy something new, you can put that into your force list and play it. So you can keep up with that kind of stuff, but you'll also get to use it as well. But yeah, the release schedule from GW, for example, is pretty relentless, and you would think that fear of missing out, plus the fact that you probably physically can't keep up with everything, and probably most of us can't afford to keep up with everything, you think that would kind of sort of put a few people off, but it just seems to kind of pull people further in. So I don't think it's necessarily the release schedule that's kind of creating this. Is it the sunken cost fallacy? Now, I don't want to kind of teach a granny to suck eggs here, but the sunken cost fallacy, for those who don't know what that is, it is generally like when we continue to do something because of our past decisions. So like whether it be for time or money or resources, rather than kind of making that decision based upon what will maximize or what will be the best for us kind of thing. For example, if you go to a restaurant and you order a really, really big meal, you order a massive steak, loads of fries on the side, it's got onion rings, it's got all sorts of stuff with it, and this thing comes along and it's huge. You kind of mentally force yourself to kind of eat until you're almost bursting at the seams because you think, well, I've paid for it, I'm going to eat it kind of thing. That's that sunken cost sort of fallacy. The fact that you're forcing yourself to kind of do something that you know probably isn't the best decision, but based upon the fact that you've kind of already spent the money like in the past. And I think this is a big factor when it comes to I think it's a big factor when it comes to a lot of miniature gaming stuff, but I think it's a big factor when it comes to Games Workshop product. And the fact that a lot of people have spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of resources, and a lot of money in building their GW collections. And I think that they're almost on this hamster wheel, and they would feel that this fear of missing out, it's like, well, I've got to have this next bit. I've got to have this new thing that comes out. Because if I don't, what's it all been for? Why have I spent all that money? Why have I spent all that much time on it? Why have I spent all that time I was going to say painting stuff, but let's be honest, we're not all painting that stuff. Why have I invested so heavily in it if I just stop now? And I think there is an element of that in there, but it can't be for everybody. I think one of the biggest parts of what creates this kind of FOMO is us, ourselves. I think it's us, it's the community around us. It's the fact that I think we all like to feel part of something. We all like to feel part of a community. We all like to be liked. I mean, none of us kind of want to be hated by people. None of us want to be singled out and pushed to one side. And I think a lot of people try to keep up with the latest stuff purely to make sure that they stay in touch with the wider community and stay in touch with the hobby. Now, could this be what drives FOMO? I think there's an element of it in there. But then I would go back to my original point of, but why wouldn't we see this with other games as well? If it was about being part of a community, why would we not see it with other games? Is it because 40k and AOS are the more popular games, therefore we want to be popular, we want to be with the popular people kind of thing? Is it a kind of like a subconscious thing, and is that why like people get dragged into it? Like I'm not saying I'm immune for this. I've gone through my kind of my phase of GW stuff and the fear of missing out. I'm looking on the shelf in front of me here. There is a lot of box sets that I've bought that I've done pretty much nothing with. Things like Necromunda, things like Cursed City, things like Kill Team boxes there. There's all sorts of stuff that I've bought over time that seemed like a good idea, and then once I actually have it in my hands and I've done the unboxing stuff, like I've unboxed it, I've clipped them all out, I've stuck models together, I've maybe even played a first game or whatever, the novelty very quickly wears off, but it didn't stop me feeling that same way again when the next release come out. So I do kind of wonder about it. We don't really see this in many other products in day-to-day life. We maybe see this a little bit in board games. But I think board gamers tend to flit around. I don't think it's necessarily a loyalty to one particular company. There's just this kind of I've got to have the latest hotness type thing. There's maybe a little bit of this on Kickstarter as well. I think people do get like sort of caught up in that FOMO of like, if I don't get on this Kickstarter now before it ends, I'll never be able to get all those extras and all that kind of stuff. But then when it comes to those kind of Kickstarters, there's also, I think deep down people know, well, actually, you know, if I get this buyer's remorse at the end of it, I'll get my money back. I'll probably even make a couple of quid at the end of it, because I think when it comes to board games and Kickstarters and stuff, you can generally get a decent, or certainly before all of the VATs and taxes and all that kind of stuff came in, you can generally get your money back, or you can make a little bit of profit on it, because it's like all of a sudden there are people who have feared of missing out. They missed out on the Kickstarter and now they're willing to pay over the odds to kind of get those games. And I think things like maybe Magic the Gathering maybe has a little bit of that as well. But again, there is some inherent value in certain cards, and so people kind of will buy into that as well. The difference with miniature games is that basically, as soon as you've opened that box, as soon as you've bought it and you've opened it up, you might have clipped a few models out, you've essentially kind of, the value has gone down at that point. If you've painted stuff, if you've painted half of it, for example, even if you've painted the full thing, sometimes even the value goes down then, because a lot of people actually want that experience of building the models, or maybe to paint the models. So you can actually devalue something by actually spending some time with that product. There are exceptions to this, but they're few and far between where things are actually worth more in the future. The only other thing I can think of really is things like sneakers, trainers, where people kind of want the latest thing, but again, there is an inherent value in having those kind of limited edition shoes that kind of go up in value later. This is probably the only thing I think where we get caught up in this FOMO and this fear of miss out, and we've got to have the latest thing, where it inherently goes down in value at the end of it, really. So I kind of like, this isn't really about bashing GW, and I don't think Games Workshop are necessarily to blame for this. I'm not defending them or supporting them in any way. I want to really try and understand, why do we see it with Games Workshop products and not so much with others? If you get this fear of missing out, if you get this kind of this curse with other companies and other products, please do tell me in the comments or in the chat tonight, like where you get this from, because I've definitely been in this with Games Workshop products, and I have never been in this with any other product. I've got games that I play that I absolutely love. I love my Mantic stuff. I've got a big collection of Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff. But I never feel like I'm missing out on anything if I don't buy it there and then at that exact moment. I used to be like that with Games Workshop stuff, and I wonder whether it's self-perpetuating, that we all basically we all feel like that, therefore we all almost subconsciously pressure each other to feel like that. I'd love to understand what it was, and why do I hear that kind of comment about I need to distance myself from Games Workshop stuff. So why can't we just ignore it? I've managed to kind of wean myself of it over time, but I know a lot of people still feel like that now. There are some absolutely amazing products out there from lots of different companies, and there's lots of games that are equally as good, or in my opinion better. There's some fantastic lore out there for others like games as well, but I just don't really ever hear of folks getting that same FOMO. So let me know what you think. So, I'm going to go back now and have a look at the chat. So, Tony Booth Leiden, thank you very much for your donation, mate. I've just saw that on the screen. Obviously, it didn't pop up when I was doing the thing there, mate. Hopefully, it updates on the main screen here. I don't know why it hasn't yet, but hopefully it will. Let me go back here and go through some of these comments because there's a lot of stuff in here. In fact, there's so much stuff here. I'm just gonna dive in here because I can't go back through all of this stuff. Here we go. We got Infinite Hobbies. Hello, mate. How are you doing? We got here. Let's have a look. Yeah, Simon Davis saying the clip things is cool. Thanks, mate. We've got Manolus, I can't even pronounce your name properly. I don't want to butcher it. So hello there. It says, as for GW, there's nothing new coming out for God. God have some stuff leaked, but I'm a Marines guy, and I get that. But I think you'd be surprised how many people buy almost kind of, or certainly tell us that they buy almost everything. OmniFan saying, bro, that's me right now. A lot of people are, mate, as well. Let's have a little look here. James Zom saying, yeah, insert Magic the Gathering here. I did mention Magic as well, mate. Paul Welch says he's late in, been popping the bed to bed. Hello, fella, how you doing? Manloss is saying it's got dry, and then when they release, they can't demand the supply. I think it's kind of, like I say, I don't even think it's just, like, I know what they're like. They create, like, there's always this kind of clamoring for the new releases. But it's not. But I don't even think it's just them. It's literally anything. It's this chomping at the bit all the time to have everything from day one. Doesn't matter what it is, really. Simon Daisy, I think GW has a bad track record of limited releases on minis going out of stock. Yeah, I've kind of covered that one. I don't think it's just that. And Tony saying scalping didn't help with FOMO, but I think GW wised up to that. Yeah, I think like I say, there are certain things that kind of go out of stock very quickly, and they're made in limited numbers. But what I'm literally talking about, like, everything that comes out seems to generate this kind of stuff. Like this Ash Wastes from Necromunda, I saw people sort of climbing over themselves, wanting to kind of make sure that they got in on launch day for that. The same thing will happen with the Horus Heresy box as well. Where are we up to here? Paul Taylor saying, I think a lot of it is the fact that we release something every week and the hype that comes with it. Yeah, like I say, mate, I think there's an element of that as well. I think the fact that basically it is a constant stream of stuff. And like I say, I don't think they market any more aggressively than anybody else. I think sometimes they actually market less aggressively than other companies. But I think what happens is, I think the community does the hard yards for them, really. There's a lot of content creators who kind of, like, obviously have channels dedicated just to their product. And I think it's a relentless kind of, if you're somebody like me that watches like a lot of YouTube and stuff, you're surrounded by it. Now I don't watch a lot of GW content online because I don't really play their games generally, but it's hard to not kind of find it. Like if you're essentially interested in any miniatures games and you search for content around that particular game, you'll get recommended some Warhammer stuff in amongst around it, purely by the fact that kind of the way YouTube's algorithm works is like, oh, you like miniatures stuff, I assume you like Warhammer as well, because that's really popular. So I'm assuming that we see a lot of that. Paul says, I used to have a terrible FOMO with Malifaux's alternate sculpts. Again, I think some companies, you will get that for specific products that are limited releases, like the mispack type stuff. For those I don't know about the weird games and the Malifaux stuff, they have like a miss something alternate sculpt every year. The first one was called Mispack, and then there's things like sort of other type stuff as well. But I get that for limited edition stuff. I think kind of you will get that, but generally it's the GW stuff I'm talking about is more than just that. Let's have a little look here. I'm just scrolling down here, looking at some of these. Simon Dave saying the curse of meta. People are desperate to keep up before things are fixed with an update. Are people really that cheesy? Like, are people really that kind of sort of addicted to have to kind of, I'm not going to say cheat because it's not cheating, it's in the rules. Are they really that kind of sort of desperate to get a win in a miniatures game before something is changed? Like, I'd like to think the answer to that is no, but you're probably right, mate, to be honest. Thomas is saying, ruined me with Sylvaneth, need Morok and all common Warcry stuff, and miss the Titans, have to earn a lot. I think the other side of things is that generally the stuff that comes out isn't limited forever, it's just limited at a more reasonable price, shall we say. I don't want to say at a cheaper price, because I think cheap's probably not quite right, but when you get slightly better value for what's in the box rather than buying the bits separate. Perum says GW does so much scummy stuff that it adds up. Do you know what? I'm not defending Games Workshop at all. But I wouldn't say they necessarily do scummy stuff. Like, every business in the world generally puts their prices up. Generally, every business, like, and I'm not even saying it's right. It's like things like capitalism. It doesn't make it right, but supermarkets put their price up, and like sort of car showrooms put their price up if there's demand for a product, and they can still sell it by putting their price up. They put their prices up. So there's a lot of, I wouldn't even say there were reasons that it's not just Games Workshop. If Games Workshop were the only company who ever put their prices up or charged like a big margin, shall we say, for their products, you could kind of point the finger and go, it's absolutely disgusting. Like, it's so out of line with everything else in the world. But it's just what big companies do. They have an audience. They have a big audience. They have a loyal audience, and they are basically they're a company that has shareholders, and therefore it is their job to sort of manage shareholder expectations and I'm not saying it's right. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying they are not alone in this. They are one company in amongst probably every company on the stock market who do exactly the same. They just happen to be making sort of profits. Andrew says, I swear I'm going to look into it, but my theory is the big FOMO period we had 2 years ago was due to a massive glut of new players, and they didn't have the supply. I think we were seeing it before COVID, mate. I think what's happened is because of COVID, when they had to shut down for a while and supply lines coming in from China and all that kind of stuff, and probably raw materials and everything else, I think it's created them a bit of a kind of like a pile up, if you like. It's created them a bit of a supply issue, which is probably hasn't helped things. But I think we've been seeing that FOMO for years. I remember when I first got into gaming and stuff, there was still that kind of passionate sort of fanboy, fangirl like sort of FOMO. It was just that stuff didn't come out as often as it does now. OmniFan says it's because GW is more consumer based, new stuff every week. Meanwhile, I'm getting into Marvel and they're only releasing a few things in June, but that's enough. It says AMG actually talks to their fans. I would argue GW talks to their fans as well. I mean, whether they listen to them is a different matter, but I would certainly say they interact more than some companies do. GW release way more stuff now than they ever used to when I was younger and first getting into kind of miniature gaming. But then I guess it sells. So like if ignore what you think of GW. If you think they're the savior, or if you think they're the devil incarnate, it doesn't really matter what you think of them. If it was your business and you had people literally chomping at the bit to buy pretty much anything you put out, would you not put more stuff out? So like, it doesn't, like, I'm not suggesting it's good, it's bad, whatever. I'm just saying that basically what they are doing is they have a demand. There is an audience that creates that demand, and they will supply it until supply outstrips demand and nobody wants it anymore. At the minute, you kind of you ride with it, really. I think every other miniatures company would love to have that level of demand, but they don't, because it's a smaller audience. That's all. Super Pumpkin Man says, I think it's part of the over-competitive nature of many GW players, and if they can get it first, they win. I'm not sure that's kind of limited to GW stuff, though. I can't believe That doesn't happen in Kings of War. I can't believe it doesn't happen in Infinity. I can't believe it doesn't happen in Marvel Crisis Protocol. Wherever there is a competitive scene, you will have competitive players who want to win. I don't think that's limited to GW, and I don't think that there is like such a high proportion of the player base that is competitive over any other game that it basically drives a kind of a purchasing habit. I'm not sure that's the case. Paul saying, I had to get the Kill Team Nakmun box. It's still under my desk with Mon Muddle done. Told me a lot about the way I look at what I'm buying as a newcomer to the hobby. Paul, I think there are so many people in that same boat. There's nothing wrong with buying something and not really doing anything with it. As long as, one, you can afford it. It's, you know, like, it's not like you kind of, you know, the family don't eat next week because I bought the new Horus Heresy box kind of thing. As long as it's not that. And as long as you're happy with it, if you're getting buyer's... When I say you, I mean everybody watching, not just you, Paul. If you get buyer's remorse when you buy something, if you buy something and you're so excited for it and it gets delivered and it comes through the door and you can't wait to get it out the box and you rip the shrink wrap off and you open it up and you look at all the cool stuff inside and then you basically, like, you know, you start clipping them out and then... About a week later, once you've took all your pictures and you've shown everybody online that you've got this new box and you've shown like all your mates who didn't buy it and stuff, about a week later you're kind of looking at it thinking like, I'm never going to play that. I'm never going to paint that. Or even worse, what you're doing is you've pushed it to one side because you've already started getting excited about the next box that's coming out next weekend. Then that's when I think people have a problem. There's nothing wrong with buying something and then not really doing anything with it. Maybe you might do it later on and stuff, but I would suggest it's worth kind of questioning why do we do this? I've done this in the past. Why do we buy things that we then don't do anything with? But yeah, everybody can buy whatever they like. Thomas is saying, yeah, everyone has a big pile of shame. I think the whole hobby, the entire hobby industry is propped up on the fact that we are all impulse buyers and we all get caught up in the excitement of a new game and a new model. That's why they keep releasing new stuff all the time. I think that the purchasing habits of the entire wargaming community and customer base are very, very different to the actually doing anything with the products they buy habits. Craig Johnson, hello Craig. He said it's the Juggernaut effect, the fact that it's so much bigger than any other game. I think there's an element of that, mate. What I would expect to see is the same kind of FOMO type thing for other games, but on a smaller scale. But I just don't see it. That's the kind of difference. Part of me thinks it's almost like a community sort of hobbyist driven thing where we almost all inadvertently and without us meaning to do it, we all kind of create that kind of hype amongst ourselves. Like in my Facebook group for like the BlackJack community group, I see people posting stuff about like, oh, there's a new Games Workshop thing out this weekend, even though we've probably seen it in 25 other groups. I see that like, oh, I can't wait to get this one kind of thing. I'm definitely going to pick this one up. And I see it's the same people with that same kind of FOMO every single time, but I don't necessarily see people saying, "Oh, there's a new model out for Infinity" kind of thing. Even if that's the game they play, or there's a new model out for, let's say for Atomic Mass Games, you know, for Star Wars Legion, there's a new model out for Marvel Crisis Protocol. I see that less often, and it's not a case of like, oh well, the stuff comes out less often, like. There's been a lot of new releases for Marvel coming up recently. There's been some leaks online and stuff like that. And outside of the kind of like the Marvel groups, I tend not to see it. Andrew says to expand, they had an issue with supply the year before COVID, and I started seeing a large number of non-gaming YouTubers talk about 40k. I think there's an element of that, mate. I think I definitely saw people I think as Games Workshop's brand has kind of gone a little bit wider, and they've started branching out into things like the Bandai toys, the figures type stuff, the fact of Warhammer Plus, and it's kind of like the animated stuff. We're starting to see obviously the video games like New Dark Tide coming out, that kind of stuff. It widens the appeal, I would suggest, beyond just the miniatures. So. And then I guess you also had lockdown, people stuck at home, maybe thought they'd pick up some models, and Warhammer was the thing they saw. But what I'm generally talking about here is that FOMO of people that have been in the hobby for like 30 years, people that have been in the hobby for 10 years. It's not the newcomers, I think, that are generating this kind of fear of missing out. Yeah, let me just kind of scroll down. I'll see and get some more. Tony saying, yeah, GW best quality, but aesthetically they're chunky, characterless Pokemon with detailing these days. Again, I think it's like I said in the main chat, the quality, I don't think you can question the quality of them. The quality of the actual sprues, the way that they kind of managed to fit their models together to hide mold lines and hide joins. This is the odd one where I think it's a little bit like, oh wow, what were they thinking there kind of thing. But generally the newer stuff is, they have some very, very talented people working for them. When it comes to visibly and it's kind of aesthetically looking at something and saying, do I like it? I think the fact that I don't really buy their stuff kind of generally answers that question. For me personally, it's not really my kind of aesthetic. It's not really my kind of style. But that doesn't make them bad products necessarily. Super Pumpkin Man saying that, and some people just buy into the hype of new shiny big box. So, but why do people not buy into the hype of a shiny big box for every other company as well? I don't really hear that kind of like the fact that I hear people saying I have to make a conscious effort to wean myself off GW stuff. I need to kind of get rid of all their social media stuff. The fact that I see and hear that more than once, but never ever hear that for another company, like that's the bit that I'm fascinated with. And this is not necessarily about I'm not necessarily like saying about like GW in isolation. It's almost holding that mirror up as to what do their community do to create this kind of this passionate community, if you like, that every other company and every other company's communities are not doing. Or is it there, but it's just so small that you never hear about it? I would suggest that it's not. Let me scroll down a little bit here. Simon Dave saying, I think it's important to remember lots of GW fans only play and buy GW. I have friends who never buy anything from other companies. It says they see GW as a hobby by itself. I think therein is also one of the things I was talking about, this sunken cost fallacy, the fact that they don't, that they've basically sort of, they've already sunken a lot of money into it. People, especially in the UK, I think people find miniature gaming hobby generally buy a Games Workshop on the high street, or they got into it through like things like Hero Quest when they were kids, or whatever it is. I think these days it's still a massive factor, but I think the internet and this age now of lots of kind of like of YouTube and Instagram and everything else certainly kind of shows you that there are a lot of other companies out there as well. And if you go into a hobby shop, you will be surrounded by lots of different things, and you'll see other games being played. I think they're still by far and away the most popular and the biggest. It goes without saying, really. But I think it's not just that anymore. VJ saying, only thing has me interested in Horus Heresy miniatures is having a small kill team of beaky marines. Even then I'd probably play them as enforcers with dead zone rules. I mean, again, I think sometimes there's a I think a little one fell out of bed there. There's sometimes a little bit of nostalgia and stuff like that. I think if people have sort of bought older marines in the past and stuff like that. Andrew says GW's target customer isn't the 95% of casuals that play D&D or Magic, but the 5% that buy everything for 40k. I'm not really sure that I don't think they necessarily target themselves at 5% of the audience. If you're a company making the kind of money that they do, you can't just target 5% of your community. I think what they've got is they have a higher proportion of their customer base than you would think, who buy lots and lots of stuff. Otherwise, things wouldn't sell out. Vijay's in there, yeah. The online community amplifies the marketing more like 1,000%. Yeah, I think I said 100%, didn't I? I think I probably meant a bit more like 1,000,000%, to be fair. Jason saying he's excited for a fantasy war game by Corvus Belli. To be honest, mate, I've seen the videos and stuff, but I must admit, I don't really know much about it, if I'm honest. Lee Reynolds, hello fella. He's saying GW must be doing something right. Yeah, I'm not suggesting they're doing anything wrong purely from a business perspective, and achieving their business goals, and their business goals are to make more profit this year than they made last year. I'm not suggesting that they're doing anything like kind of wrong in that respect. And this ramble, if you like, isn't about pointing the finger at them and saying evil GW. You know, it's nothing like that. It's more about what can we learn from the community. What can we do ourselves to stop us getting caught up in that hype, when really there's no need to get caught up in the hype. There's no need to overspend. There's no need to buy stuff that you'll never do anything with. Like, what is it that drives that mentality that we don't see elsewhere? That's kind of really what I'm talking about. Tony saying, yeah, I don't mind GW, definitely not anti-GW, but there's not that much in terms of their minis that floats my boat. And then Lee saying, I'm on the other side. I think that's just any. I think that's any miniatures company, to be fair. I don't think that's kind of like just the realm of, you could pick out any, like pick out Malifaux, for example. There are some people who absolutely love their miniatures. There are some people who just say, well, there's just nothing that really floats my boat. I think it's all a bit too strange. So I think that's any company, really. Clavak says, this isn't a GW thing. We do most RPG players. Why do most RPG players play D&D? Why do most card game players play Magic? These are niche hobbies, and most people only get exposed to the bigger brands. It's not just about only getting exposed to the bigger brands. It's not even about people that play GW games. Like, it doesn't matter the fact that that they play in these games. It's this getting caught up in this fear of missing out thing. I don't think people have this fear of missing out when it comes to to D&D. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I know people generally want to buy the books on launch. I get that. But what I mean is, outside of our hobby, outside of tabletop, is there anything else that sees this kind of fear of missing out? Like, do we see it in trainers and sneakers, I guess, but then there's an inherent value in that. We see it a little bit in like things like new mobile phones, Apple phones, whatever it might be. We see it a little bit in that. We might see it a little bit at the launch of a new games console or something, but that kind of wears off a little bit after granted, recent times with things like PlayStation 5 and Xbox changed a bit with them not being able to supply the market, but generally that fear of missing out isn't I wouldn't say it was as big in those other stuff. Thomas is saying, no idea where to store the stuff anymore, living in a toy shop already. Yeah. Scott saying, Necromunda's the one I like but hate all the books and cards. I'm not that close to it, mate, to be fair. VJ says, all you can eat sesame prawn toast is a sunken cost fallacy I'm very susceptible to. I think that's more about, I'm going to make sure I get my money's worth, mate, if it's all you can eat. Ian saying, yeah, he agrees with Tony. There's some stuff he would like that was cool, but I won't buy a lot of it. Yeah, I mean, there's some GW stuff that comes out where I see it and I think, oh, that's really cool. I wouldn't mind painting that kind of thing. All I kind of mean is that I'm not any longer in that kind of there's something new coming out. I can't wait for it, and then basically buying it and doing pretty much nothing with it kind of thing. I've those days are long behind me now. But there are a lot of I used to do it. There are people do it all the time, but I was never ever like that for other companies. And I'm not somebody that's massively into the background or the games really. I think I just get caught up in the hype. But I think a lot of the hype is created by us, other kind of hobbyists. I don't necessarily think the hype is created by GW, and that's kind of the bit I'm trying to get my head around. Is it a case of the fact that other communities just don't create that same hype? I don't know. Cardos, good evening to you, buddy. Nice to see you. Just scrolling down here a little bit. Somebody chatting about Fortnite there a little bit. I can't remember where was that one. Lee saying that Fortnite gets updated all the time to balance the game. It does, but then there's not this kind of fear of missing out thing, mate, is it? It's just that's just them updating their game and keeping. What they want to do is they want to keep people playing it. That's where their money is for them. Scroll down a little bit. OmniFan saying he's got ADHD and wanted to collect every faction for all of their games. It never ends though. I get halfway through something and release something that's new to interest me. The cycle never stopped. Yeah, and I guess having kind of that ADHD probably doesn't help. And maybe if you were into another game, you'd probably still have that same kind of issue with that game as well, to be fair. Jez says it's almost a cult. It's pretty odd. The addictive quality of endless novelty with releases. A community of addicts, maybe, and that's that and the hypno-ray. It's cult is quite an interesting word there. It can be a bit cult-like at times. But I honestly I think we're touching on the element of it, and kind of as I formulated all my different ideas today. Like I'm not going to blame the community, for example, for the problems of creating FOMO, but I do think we maybe ourselves, without really thinking about it, there's an element of it that we create ourselves as well amongst each other. And the community of addicts is quite an interesting kind of thing. Like I do wonder. Are there people? Is it the cost of GW stuff that keeps people buying only GW stuff, which then creates that kind of single-minded focus? Whereas people who play other games maybe spend a little bit less on their stuff, so buy more stuff, like for other games and stuff, and so don't get hung up necessarily on that one particular thing. I wonder if there's something in that as well. OmniFan saying, took me 3 years to break a GW curse. I like how these other companies release at a normal pace. The saying less is more is literal for me. I think there is a lot to that, mate. I think there is something about that kind of hamster wheel release schedule that that feels a bit relentless at times. But then again, I remember seeing the other side of it many years ago, when it was almost a case of like there's nothing come out for this army for like 18 months now. Like we're waiting forever for new stuff to come out. This codex is kind of 2.5-3 years old or something like that. So I remember those kind of conversations too as well. Manilos is saying there's a lot of grown-ups who can't paint, being an average funds poor kid. I learned to paint the exact kits. I couldn't afford codexes and all the books, but they fund like a child who buys toys. I guess it's just, there's no wrong way to do the hobby, really. Just because somebody doesn't want to paint or whatever, it's not necessarily a thing. Jess says people queue outside all night for new trainers. Humans are odd. Yeah, and I think there's certainly an element in all of this. We could get really kind of deep and psychological on this stuff and right into the psychology of it. But there is an element of sometimes we as humans buy things to show other people. I think we do buy things because we appreciate them ourselves and we want them. But I think there are some people in society and in the world who buy things for other people to see what they have. And I think the internet and social media has amplified that to the point where this is why people take pictures and flex, as the cool kids would say, show off all the cool things. And I think trainers or sneakers are a real example of this as well. I really like my trainers. It's probably one of my kind of like sort of hidden sort of hobby type things. I like sort of I've got God knows how many pairs of trainers. I like nice trainers, right? But I don't really worry about if other people like them or not. I'm not necessarily buying the latest kind of off-whites or anything like that. I just buy the nice ones that I like, kind of thing. But there is that kind of mentality of buying things to show other people, and I think there is an element of like buying the new releases and getting a picture of them and putting them on social media and getting that kind of that interaction back to say, oh yeah, or well done, you've bought one of them as well, kind of thing, and keeping on that hamster wheel. Like if you don't have anything to show, like is there the psychological thing of like you're not relevant anymore because you don't have the things that we have. And I do wonder whether that plays into it as well a little bit. Andrew Fairbanks is saying, yeah, regarding the sunken cost fallacy, yes, that's me, but I don't know if it still is because I still like the games. The only reason that you would be kind of class yourself as falling into that sunken cost fallacy thing is if if you felt like you were only buying stuff because you'd already bought stuff. Like, if you're buying stuff because you like it, like none of what I'm talking about matters. Like, I'm not saying anybody is wrong for buying the stuff that they buy. I just mean that some people, I think, keep buying stuff because they say, well, like businesses do this. Businesses basically keep it. I think another phrase would be kind of throwing good money after bad. Basically, like, if you keep doing something, and I think that you see things like companies where they're like, you know, if they spend a lot of money advertising and they're not getting the return on the advertising and they're not seeing any sales, they continue to keep advertising because they think, well, if I stop, I'll lose the few sales that I already get, kind of thing. So they keep throwing money at advertising even though it's not paying off. And the better course of action would be to just stop spending your advertising money and kind of that's money you would keep. You see this a lot in business. A lot of companies do this. They basically, you know, like they keep sort of throwing good money after bad. I think it exists within wargaming as well, and I think it exists quite a lot around Games Workshop products because of the age of the product, if you like. The fact that 40k has been around forever, the fact that a lot of kind of like sort of older gamers, if you like, or people that have been around within kind of the miniature gaming hobby for quite some time, have quite a lot of stuff. And I think if they were to just stop playing 40k or stop playing, I think some of the fallout from fantasy was around this as well. It would almost be like, well, what's it all been for? Why did I spend all that money on this game that I don't play anymore? I think there's an element of that as well. Tony, thank you again for the donation, mate. Says, thanks for teaching me about the sunken cost fallacy. I felt it before, but didn't know it was an actual thing. It definitely is a thing, mate, yes. Blizzard saying, I'm planning on getting the new Horus Heresy boxes. I love the old beaty aesthetic and the Spartan tank, but it'll likely sell on the book and just build this army to play it in one-page rules. I think there's an element of that as well, mate, isn't there? Just buying stuff and using it however you want. There's so much chat here, it's hard for me to go through everybody's comments. I'll kind of skim read through some of these things. Blair saying, when I started painting last year, was really only aware of GW, then found other games on YouTube and bought loads that I liked. I think that's generally the case, mate. I think a lot of people do start with that. John Binham, good evening, mate. He said, another factor, I think GW sell me a product, whereas Mantic sell me an idea. I've committed so much more time and creativity into my Kings of War army compared to the AOS one I've sold on. I think, again, that's probably like a personal thing, and I guess it definitely kind of relates to how you feel about your product and what you do with them, I guess. Bruce, good evening to you, mate. And he says, GW is a legacy company around for decades, so their consumer base is deep. There are lots of tabletop games that have far better rule sets, but GW fans are reluctant to try them. Sunk cost fallacy, perhaps. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're reluctant to try them. If people are enjoying the game they're playing, there's no necessarily reason to go and try other games, really. If that's your hobby and you're enjoying it, the only thing I would say is that the people that aren't enjoying it but continue to keep buying stuff almost like through gritted teeth and keep playing the games they're not enjoying, that's where I would be saying, like, what on earth are you doing, kind of thing. Let's have a little look here. Tabletop Transformers saying, I'd say there's a little bit of FOMO for Magic. Good evening, mate, by the way. Yeah, I don't really know Magic that well, but I would assume that it's kind of a very similar type of thing. If you look at some Mantic stuff, there's an accidental FOMO. And Kalavac saying there's absolutely a lot of FOMO with these kind of hobbies. I don't see it though to the same extent. And let's be honest, I am surrounded by tabletop games and tabletop gamers, but the GW thing is on a completely different level. It dwarfs everything else when it comes to that kind of fear of missing out and that kind of like gotta have the latest thing, gotta constantly buy everything. I don't really see that from other games. Let's have a little look here. Tabletop Rumble says, games on Kickstarter has massive FOMO, had to force myself away. Yeah, hello mate, by the way. And yeah, I did mention Kickstarter, but again, I think there's an element of I mean, Kickstarter is almost, it's that countdown clock. It's the fact that you have a limited window to buy it, and there's a lot of people get caught up in that FOMO of like, well, I've got to have the limited edition models and all that kind of stuff. The difference being when it eventually does ship, there's some inherent value in that, and you'll probably be able to get your money back or make a few quid in it. You don't really get that with miniature game stuff. Because most of the time, like what I was saying before, most of the time the stuff that you're buying, you can kind of go and buy it on the shelf. It's the like things like new codexes, things like certain new models and things. There is an element of it. It's this. I've got to have it this weekend. I've got to have it on launch weekend, because if I don't buy it on launch weekend, then basically I've missed out on that wave of excitement with everybody else, of us all communally getting the thing at the same time and all talking about it and the hype of it. Nobody's talking about kind of the Kill Team starter box that came out ages ago either. Nobody's really talking about that. Nobody's talking about the Warcry starter box that came out like sort of 6 months ago or something. Everything has its kind of cycles, and that's what I mean. I think there's an element of getting in on day one to be part of that like that wave of excitement, if you like. Egon says, got the fear of missing out nearly with every hobby, no matter what, tabletop, cycling, FPV, just normal humans are socially. That might say more about you, mate, than the hobbies, to be fair, if that's the case, because I certainly don't get that fear of missing out when it comes to kind of other stuff. Like, if it comes to things like camera equipment and lights and stuff for my studio, like I don't like watch kind of when's the new Canon camera coming out and I've got to have the latest one, or there's a new lens coming, I've got to have that. I kind of buy the bits that I want when I want them, or things that I need when I need them. And again, as I'll go back to the original comment, I used to be like this for Games Workshop stuff, even though I've never really been a massive Games Workshop kind of fan or a massive Games Workshop player, and I think I just kind of got caught up in the hype with everybody else. I definitely think there's something in that. Ian saying, when some stuff's arrived, I'll scream the Discord down. Jezza saying, I reckon crackheads definitely have fear of missing out. Drugs, I think it's definitely. That's the point when addiction comes in versus kind of and is that what we're talking about here? Is it an addiction? Do we all have this kind of inherent addiction in us to kind of like the shopping addiction type thing? There is it just wanting to buy new stuff? But again, I go back to like, well, why isn't it other games? Tabletop Transformer says Fortnite has the battle passes. That is their FOMO. I think the difference is if you don't. You can still play without a battle pass though, can't you? Like nobody. The battle pass is just essentially. I don't know that much about Fortnite, but as far as I know, it's just like skins and stuff like that, isn't it? Cardos says certain action figure lines have the same hype. Star Wars figures fly off the shelves. Pop figures seem to be the same. But again, my point is always the same when it's anything else. There's an inherent value in those things. Those things actually appreciate in value by their scarcity. Like miniature wargaming stuff really doesn't. And like I said before, as soon as you've opened it, it's worth less. And most of the stuff that is creating this FOMO is on the shelf 6 months later. That's the key point that I think we're kind of missing there. VJ is saying his key to surviving Kickstarter hype is to have strict rules, must have gameplay video, must have solo mode, must have decent postage to Australia. I think that there's nothing wrong with me having a few kind of sort of like boundaries, I think, around that kind of stuff. The Hypno Toad. Lee Russ, hello buddy. He says, does some of the FOMO come from I'd better get it now while the rules are good before they get nerfed? Somebody else said that earlier on as well, and I said I'd like to think that basically people are not that desperate to win a game of like toy soldiers, if you like, and I don't want to belittle it. It's my hobby as well. I don't mean it like that, but I said I'd like to think that people are not just like sort of getting themselves caught up in a frenzy just to have some models before they get nerfed. but maybe they are, mate. Maybe they are. Lazy Pirate Peyton, good evening, mate. How you doing? Let's have a little look. Lee Burns says there's something interesting about how anticipating something, a holiday, a nice meal, a new box set, whatever, is almost more enjoyable than the thing itself. GW play on this brilliantly. You are absolutely right, mate. There is that kind of, it's like almost the chase. The chase is better than the catch kind of thing. It's like going fishing, isn't it? It's like catching the fish is the enjoyable part, and once you've got the fish, like some people just throw them back kind of thing. It's the catching of the fish that is the enjoyable part. And I agree. I think there's something that is robbed from you if you don't have that kind of that build up, that anticipation, that excitement. Like you say, the planning of a holiday is almost sometimes more enjoyable than the holiday itself. And I think Kickstarter plays on that a lot. That build up and that feeling part of a community of people who are all on this journey together, and we're all on the hype train. Choo choo. We're all kind of going together, and I think there's an element of that. And maybe it is the size of the GW community and the fact that it's easy to get caught up in this wave of enthusiasm and this wave of excitement that because of the size of that community, it brings that wave. I'm not even sure if it's a GW thing or if it's just the fact that the community, they're so big as a company and they're so big as an audience and a community that drives that wave of enthusiasm. And it's that thing that drives that FOMO stuff. It drives that mentality. And maybe that's why we don't see it with other miniatures companies, is it's just not that volume of people. You know, the way people react when they're in a crowd, if you're at a football match, like if you go to like a local Sunday league game and you're at the sideline in the park on your own, just watching a game of football, it might be a brilliant game of football, but you're not chanting, you're not cheering, you're not singing, you're not up there kind of like sort of giving it like this, like capping to the crowd when there's like two blokes and a dog at the side of the pitch. You get yourself into a crowd of 45,000 people, and all of a sudden that mob mentality, that wave of kind of passion and enthusiasm just kind of washes over everybody, and you get dragged along with it. Maybe that is the whole point. It is just the size of the community that drives this wave of enthusiasm, and you feel that if I'm not on board with this, I'm not part of this crowd, I'm not part of this community. Maybe that really is the whole thing. Spiderlord saying it's not that different to board games. I got more than I'll ever get round to playing, and don't get me started on expansions. I think a lot of board game players are like that, mate. I think there's an addictive nature to buying new board games, certainly more than playing them. Andrew's saying the trick with GW is to have 2 major games, 3 soon, and 4 or 5 minor ones, each on a regular release schedule, but you don't see it because there's always something. I think other companies have similar types of things. If you think of how many sort of game systems like Mantic have, for example, between Dead Zone and Firefight and Kings of War and and Vanguard and all that kind of stuff, like they're not alone in having multiple games. So I honestly think we touched on it with the size of the community. I think is almost what kind of waves this along. Gary Hollandale, good evening, mate. He said GW are so you almost can't afford to get into other, or expensive, can't afford to get into other systems, whereas other systems are cheap enough you can spread the wealth almost. I'm not sure I do agree. I know they're expensive, but what I mean is at the end of the day, you are still choosing to spend that money. You don't have to buy everything. You don't have to buy every release. You don't have to buy every release right now. You might want to for certain things, for your army, for example. But I do wonder how much of this is the wave of like volume of people pulls everybody along on that kind of on that wave, if you like. Let's have a little look here. Clavac says if we joined a hobby community of camera people and watched videos of new cameras every week, for sure we'd end up spending a lot on camera bits. There are some people who buy a lot of people on who spend a lot on camera stuff, but nobody's buying like every single new camera that comes out. Nobody's buying every new like body or every single lens. There are people who want the latest thing and stuff like that, but I would like it. Camera stuff's way more expensive than Warhammer will ever be, that's for sure. David Warren, hello mate. He said FOMO is the biggest cancer in so many companies' sales and marketing playbooks. I like seeing companies hype something up, release it, and then I can pick it up on my own time and they're okay with it. I would suggest some of the stuff we're talking about now though, mate, like from Games Workshop, like things like codexes and stuff, are released like that. I'm not saying they release everything like that, but some of the stuff that people get like their knickers in a twist about and have to have launch weekend is stuff that you can still buy down the line. VG says pop vinyls appreciating value. Those things are nothing but dust collectors. If you're queuing up to buy limited release ones, mate, they have a value, and you'd be surprised how much some of them go for. Like things like sort of convention special releases and stuff like that, they go for some strange money. Moose is saying I think it's a lot of their products are pre-orders are limited. Yeah, I kind of went on about that before, mate. It's not. I know some of them are, but it's everything. It's like there's a lot of stuff that comes out that is just main shelf products, but people still feel the need to buy them first weekend. Thomas is saying, when did they start with limited order? Biggest disaster was Curse City, right? The Curse City thing was, I think there was more to it, mate, than we'll ever get to find out. I think it wasn't meant to be limited like the way it ended up being. I think basically they've just... I'm trying to remember what, like, if I go back, like things like Space Hulk were always limited when they were released. Like they're not on the shelves anymore. So it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing that they're doing. It's just that they release more stuff now, so it happens more often. VGC, yeah, definitely community size contributes to hype train, self-perpetuating critical mass. Yeah, I think that's maybe the thing. And it's not a case of like blaming the community. I think it's just like there is a wave of enthusiasm and a wave of excitement that comes with every single game that's released for every single company. But the sheer volume and size of the GW community is what kind of pushes that wave so that it almost crashes over people and drags people along. That's probably why we see it in things like Magic the Gathering. Morris Span Gaming says GW must have a big psych department. They got FOMO dialed in. I don't really. Honestly, I'm not even that sure that they are the creators of this. I'm not that sure. Tiberius, hello mate, says I'm not to blame for posting GW spam in the Facebook group because I'm always suspended on Facebook. Why am I not surprised, mate? Yeah, Tabletop Transformers says I wouldn't be surprised how much pop stuff goes for. Anything that looks collectible won't appreciate in price. If it looks collectible, yeah, the problem is it's about how much of that thing there is. Anything that is generally limited and is kept in kind of mint condition will appreciate in price at some point by its sheer scarcity and its quality. Things like first edition comic books and stuff like that. If you keep them in them hard covers and they get graded as like a 9.8 and stuff, if things appreciate in value. The difference is when they released 200,000 copies of that comic book and everybody and their dog's got one. Tony says I was sold on the Wild West Exodus 2 player box. I was straight on it. I don't regret buying that box, even though the rules and gubbins were useless. No, and I guess that's different, but I'm not sure that's you getting caught up in FOMO, mate, because I almost feel there's a link with FOMO and regret. Like you can get something because you can think, well, if I don't get it now, it might not be available later. But the amount of people that do that and then don't do anything with the product, I think that's almost when that FOMO is bad. You bought your starter box and you enjoy painting the minis, and that's the whole point of it, isn't it? David Warren says, I just don't understand the fear because you never actually miss out on anything because there'll always be a new thing around the corner. There's an element of that, mate. Yeah, I would agree. Andrew Fairbanks says, Carrion Empire sold in a week. Loon Curse lasted a weekend. Dominion was just after. Everything was bad in 2019 and got worse in 2020. But if you remember, GW's, like their stocks, their share price and stuff started to rocket at the launch of 8th edition 40k. And everything from then onwards seemed to be kind of like, it was like whenever they touched turned to gold at that point. I think basically the the popularity of their games outstripped their capacity to make enough of each different thing. They're obviously investing in more production facilities. They're investing in expanding their warehousing and stuff. And COVID's kind of knocked some of that back, and COVID knocked back their supply lines and stuff. So there's all sorts of reasons in the background why we are where we are. But I think that I don't think it was like an engineered kind of let's start shorting the market type thing. I think they got popular. And I've done videos about this in the past about production schedules and just like and not having the physical capacity to make more stuff. And it's not like they're choosing to not supply stuff. It's the fact that the lines are on making something different now, and that they genuinely just didn't have enough capacity to make more stuff, which is why they're investing in more production. Lorbain saying, yeah, like sealed copies of Mario games that seem to sell for more than they're worth. That company's been investigated, sued for stuff like that. Super Pokemon says, I have a few collectible movie figures I know are worth 10 times what I paid for. I bought them, but I wanted them not to have as an investment. No, I've done the same, mate. I've bought stuff in the past that's probably worth more now than when I bought it. Purely by the fact that like there's not many of them about anymore. I sold a pair of Jordans that I bought when I was in the States years ago. I wore them like sort of like for a bit and stuff, and then put them in the box. I always keep boxes for trainers, to be fair. That's just me. And I put them in the box and just kind of put them on one side, and then because I bought other ones that I like wearing and stuff, and then I saw them online going for like sort of, well, they're like 500 quid or something like that, and I think I'd paid something like about $90 for them in the States a few years earlier. So I sold them because I thought, well, I'm never, if they were 500 quid, I'm never going to wear them. Like, I'd be too frightened to wear them. I might as well cash in on them now, kind of thing. So I think sometimes just by consequence, things go up in value. Tabletop Transformers says, one of the things GW is that because GW has gone to shareholders, you can't talk one without the other. I don't even think what the conversation we're having tonight is about their business practices. That's almost irrelevant, because if they put the price up and people say that's too expensive, I'm not paying that, then the share price would collapse. It would go down because nobody would buy their products. The problem we have, if you like, for want of a better phrase, is that there are enough people still buying that stuff at whatever price they decide to charge at the moment. So we can complain, like amongst ourselves, we can say it's too expensive, it should be cheaper. However, if we are outnumbered by the amount of people still buying that stuff, and their share price, like their profits, for example, would suggest that we are, that's almost where the issue is. That like if you keep paying the money, they'll keep charging the price. MSG saying, to be honest, I'd like to see GW go back to their old ways with prices and customer service. I'd like to see everybody go back to their old ways with prices. I'd love to see the price of fuel come down. I'd love to see the price of gas come down. I'd love to see the price of electric come down. I'd like to see the price of everything come down. We like, that's not kind of how the world works, is it? Like I saw a comment on a video today where somebody was complaining about saying like it's disgusting Games Workshop are making like 40% margin on products where most other companies are making 2 or 3%. If you really think that, you've never been in a business, or you've never been exposed to kind of the costs in a business. Most companies are making somewhere between sort of 30 and 40% margin on products overall. Either that, or they're making like lots of high volume stuff. Like supermarkets, for example, easily make 40% margin on pretty much every product they sell on the shelf, whether that be a tin of beans or whether that be a TV that they sell in the electrical aisle kind of thing. They make big margins, but nobody says like, oh, evil Tesco or evil Sainsbury's kind of thing, or evil Walmart. Like, you'd be surprised how much margin companies make. Andrew says, I was the one to tell you their supply was low. You weren't actually, mate. I heard it from somebody that works at Games Workshop. Tabletop Transformers says, Brexit has been a bigger pain for miniature companies than COVID, and still will be. I think there's an element of that. There's a lot of miniatures companies are based in the UK. They obviously buy their stuff from overseas, generally raw materials, or get their miniatures made abroad and get them shipped in. I think there's lots of elements in there as well, but that's not really like the foremost stuff. David says, I feel like a lot of people are so scared of scalpers and people trying to make money on a side hustle, they figure if they don't buy first weekend, they'll pay double for it in a week. But I think the problem is that those people are feeding into the problem because they are creating the scarcity and the market in which scalpers will then kind of profiteer from it. The scalpers will only make money if there is a scarcity of the product, and B, a number of people who are willing to pay more money for it. Like if one of those two things doesn't exist, the scalpers disappear, kind of thing. Mini Warmut, good evening, mate. He says, thanks, Mom, for throwing away my original Star Wars figures. I gave mine away, mate. I had a girlfriend years ago who had a younger brother, and I was thinking, I'll do something nice. I'll give him all my Star Wars toys. I'm never going to play with them again. I didn't know back then they were going to be they're going to be collector's toys. Yeah, Tiberius is saying records. FOMO exists in records. And again, I would suggest that there is an inherent value with a limited release, the kind of record, that it will go for more money than it was originally sold for. I don't think miniatures ever do that. And one of the reasons is if you take like kind of these boxes from GW, things like Carrion Empires and all that kind of stuff, generally over time, the stuff that's in those boxes is released as like single models or kind of like units. And therefore, the contents of that are no longer limited. For example, you can buy the bits from inside it, or people have split them online and they're for sale elsewhere kind of thing. It's different to something like a limited edition record where only 100 were pressed. Like, there aren't anymore. It's not like, it's not like the value of that Carrion Empires box is the box itself, because to be fair, that's the only thing that's limited, the box it came in. The models that are inside it will be released at a later date, generally anyway. Tabletop Transformer says game only took £1 from PS4s when they were new. I would very, very much doubt that, mate. If somebody's told you that, they're lying. That's not how businesses work. The only way that would work is if they were getting a really, really good deal on selling the games themselves. I can imagine someone like Sony only kind of making a loss or breaking even by just wanting to get them out into the market. But I like retailers would not be selling products for £1, mate. Honestly. Andrew saying gasoline petrol is high because the oil industry stopped drilling. Yeah, but that's my point, mate. Is like if you say I wish GW would go back to their old pricing. I wish everything would go back to their old pricing. We'd all have more money, wouldn't we? David saying that's why I play a Legion and soon Dead Zone, because I've never seen those models going for more than recommended price. No, I wouldn't. But that's because they're never really kind of like limited edition things. They're like, as in they're not something that's not remade. Features in his best mate he games with all the time. Recently sold off a bunch of his Star Wars figures collection from the 80s and he made a mint. Yeah, I really wish I'd kept a hold of mine, mate. Lord Maiden says value is perceived by the person as well. So what have I a numbered and signed Moonstone book? To me, it's a book. If I buy a packet of biscuits for £400 and gave them away, I make people happy. I think it's the value of anything is always set by the people that want it. So, for example, like it's like anything. Like if let's say, how can I put this? We'll go back. We talked about trainers before. If I've got this pair of trainers and they are one of only 50 pairs. And they are seen as kind of stylish and cool, and they are the trainers to have, the value of them, even no matter what they sold for originally, the recommended price, the value of them, the perceived value of them, it's like stock prices, it's like shares. The price will go up because there are more people want to buy it than the amount of product that is available to be bought. That instantly pushes the price up. If, for example, there was 200,000 pairs of those made, then people would go, well, there's loads of them. I'll just get them whenever I want. I don't want them because everybody's got them. Same with it's the same with like stocks of a company. It's all based upon, like, the whole stock market is fake. It's all based upon what people think something is worth. Players in Exile says, late the conversation, but there are some minis GW never release outside of a box set because of the way they put the sprue together. The Lord of Contagion comes to mind. There is the odd one, mate, but by and large, it is not like... It's not the vast majority of stuff. And let's be honest, the odd one model here and there, like, if you didn't get it, is the world really going to stop turning? The vast majority of stuff ends up coming out at some point. Hope Lives, hello mate. He says, I personally think it's overpriced and not value for money. The fact I like the models does not change my opinion. I'm old and have self-control. Again, mate, not value for money is, again, this is what I was talking about before. It's a personal thing. And when I say the cost of it is almost irrelevant, it's not irrelevant as in that, because that's being quite flippant. But what I mean is the cost is it's justified by the people that spend the money on it. If it was genuinely too expensive for everyone or for the vast majority of customers, then we'd know about it because they wouldn't be selling enough. Like I'm sure there'll be some stuff that's out there that where there's loads of stuff left on the shelf because people say, well, it's just not worth it, kind of thing. In other stuff. Mini Wormwood, hello mate. He says Simon's Zombicide games are a perfect example for this discussion. Got to stay on top of it. For example, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and now Ghostbusters set. Yeah, and I get that exactly, mate. Lord Main saying, but they're trainers. You can get trainers for 20 quid. You can get watches for a tenner, mate, but you can also buy a Rolex for 400 grand. Do you know what I mean? This is what I mean about its perceived value, and it's about scarcity, and it's about craftsmanship, and a whole number of different things. Just because, like, you know, why is a bottle of champagne £1,000 and another bottle of champagne's £20? It's like anything in life. And Lord Maiden saying, if they're high quality trainers, the price would reflect that. It's not even about the quality, mate. It's just like it's not about the functionality. It's about the what's the word I'm looking for? It's about desirability. That's what it is. It's the same when it comes to kind of designer handbags versus like a handbag from down the market. They're both bags. You both put stuff in them. They both kind of go over a woman's shoulder, kind of thing. They both carry things, but there's a desirability to one over the other. John Estel, hello fella, how are you doing? This is just in from another really good game of Firefight. I decimated his forces, but he played the objectives well and won on point. That's where we need to get to, mate. Never mind kill team, never mind killing stuff. Super Pumpkin Man says 7 years ago I would agree that some models that were released in boxes were never released again, but GW got smart and started re-releasing them. Yeah, there you go, mate. Tabletop Transformers in age doesn't matter with self-control. There's so many people with spending illnesses. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, mate. Jess is saying it's like cryptocurrency. I don't get that too. Yeah, crypto is a bit of a funny one, mate. Again, it's about perceived value and scarcity and stuff, especially when it comes to things like Bitcoin. Tabletop Transformers, it's about the IP. It's not even about the IP, mate, really. I think I wouldn't suggest. Ian says, with all the copies of the extra Game of Thrones book and burned all but one I could name, its price because it's the only one. Yeah, basically, mate. It's like, why do people pay an absolute fortune for like a first edition of a certain comic book? Why do people pay a fortune for the first edition of, for example, like let's say about like Casino, Doctor No, the first James Bond book written, or whatever it was, whatever the first James Bond book written, a first edition, first print of Harry Potter. There are thousands of Harry Potter books out there, like of Prince of the Philosopher's Stone. But if you've got a first edition copy of it, it is worth more because of its scarcity. You can never make more first edition copies. It's that kind of stuff. It's all about what people put value on. Paintings for certain artists, like for example, the original Mona Lisa is almost priceless. But that is if you just want to get a print of it and put a print on your wall. But that's not where the value is. The value isn't in the sort of how it looks. The value is in the kind of in the history and the thing. That's just what it is, isn't it? Lord Ian saying this world is nuts. This is how everything works, mate. This is why rich people are rich. Jess saying conspicuous consumption is all as humanity. There you go, mate. Thomas says some Western stuff they made before Marvel. Are we talking about what we're doing? Some Western stuff they made before Marvel. I don't know what we're talking about there, mate. Players Next Out says, how do I buy a Kanos Venom Crawler or Obliterators? I don't know, mate. I don't know what they are. Busey saying it's like Netflix costing $10.99 a month, but you can get a year subscription off AliExpress for less than €20. Can you really buy a Netflix subscription on AliExpress? GW NFTs coming soon. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, Super Pokemon first print of Batman sold for 1.5 million just the other day. Yeah, but again, that is worth it to somebody because they're also speculating on the future, aren't they? Like they're thinking it'll be worth more in the future. I'll buy it now. There's probably some tax write-offs in there as well, because but then it will appreciate in value because in 20 years' time it's still a first edition copy, and assuming it's still in good condition, it's even older. That's how these things work, isn't it? Oh, zombie side, mate. That's what you're talking about. Yes, sorry. Camo says, I've been playing Conquest, the friendly little gaming store. It's still doing well here. I don't really see it anywhere locally around here, mate, but it doesn't mean it's not doing well. Players in Exile says it was a reference to the fact that start collecting Chaos Marines boxes no longer available, and they were only available in that box. And are they still a relevant choice? Are they in the Codex? I don't know, mate. Tabletop Ramble says, I've noticed Lego generating FOMO. They've developed a clever model of retiring sets. Yeah, I've seen that as well, mate. A lot of their more expensive stuff that's designed for adults, if you like Friends. What's it called? Are they called AFOLs? Adult Friends of Lego or something like that. Those expensive sets that are are very limited and get retired, and then they turn up on AliExpress and stuff with the Leppen versions. Yeah, Beauty, honestly, you can, and it works. I can vouch for it. Also, Disney Plus. It's weird that I wonder. I do wonder how that works. I see a lot of the you see it on what they called. There's some sites where you can do it with video games and stuff where you can buy like a code off these sites, which are obviously much cheaper than other places. Excuse me, let me just have a little drink here. Tabletop Transformer, they're saying friends of Lego throws up in mouth. I think that's what they call it. It's like I'm sure it's called Adult Friends of Lego, and it's kind of basically that's their kind of like fan group, if you like. Foible Games, hello mate. Said I love the products, but I feel like getting stung every month for another big box. I need to be more conservative with my purchases. I suffer badly from the FOMO. Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean, mate. Like even if you're saying yourself that you suffer from it, like why do you feel like you get caught up in that, mate? Paul says, I'm a sucker for Lego. I must admit, mate, I quite like a bit of Lego. I wouldn't be spending like sort of thousands of pounds on it, but I do like building a kit now and again. But then I wouldn't be getting caught up in having like the limited edition sets or anything. Jason, since you don't have to pay for Netflix, just using the Dean Torres account. G2A, yeah. Well, them amongst other companies, mate. There are many companies do that kind of thing, yeah. Spider Lord's on about NFTs there, saying one sold for 5 million. I think they've just massively crashed though, haven't they, recently? I think they've gone right down the pan. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of like when it comes to the curse of GW, it's this kind that's what I was getting at really, this kind of this fear of missing out thing, and why does it relate specifically to GW rather than the other companies. And I think we kind of, between us, I think we've probably come to some kind of a reason, and I think a lot of it is almost the size of the fan base almost pulls everybody else along in a big wave with it. And I think that's interesting to almost think that we as a community have that influence over each other as opposed to the company itself. It's quite a deep and sort of psychology type thought. Clavac says, yeah, I love Lego, but I build them too fast and the enjoyment is over very soon. especially when compared to painting and building models. So you do have the option to smash it down back into its component pieces and build it again. But I bet you don't. I bet most people don't. I wonder if there's many people who build Lego, kind of get it to its finished state, and then smash it up and do it again. I wonder if there's many do that. So, folks, yeah, what's the time is it? We're coming to 1:45 now. We've still got a good crowd in. I'm happy to keep going if you're happy to keep listening to my rumble. I think we've exhausted the topic, though. It'd be nice to kind of move on and talk about some other stuff as well. Mini War Much is thinking about getting Kings of War Armada for his first naval game. Yes or no? I like Kings of War Armada, mate. I think it's a lot of fun. I've got quite a few fleets for it now. I've not really played a lot of other naval games, but personally for me, as far as naval games go, I find the rules pretty simple. There are some slightly more, like if you're a bit of a naval kind of historian, it might not be kind of accurate enough for you. But if you just want a fun game with ships, I think it's as good as anything on the market, mate. Pete says, yes, I used to build it, give it to my kid, and I had to build it again. I did that with my kids as well. We used to have like a lot of, like, my older lads who are like nearly 20 now used to have a load of Star Wars Lego stuff years ago, and I remember like building it up with them. They would get bored and wander off, and I'd finish doing the build, and then obviously they'd want to play with it because guess what, they're kids and it's toys, and like I'd be constantly having to rebuild like wings and stick bits back on, and I always wanted to kind of like super glue it together, but I thought, what kind of a freak have you become? The whole point of it is a toy. You just let kids play with it. Tabletop Transformers is Armada's quite good, but if you don't like working with resin, it's a pain. Generally, I don't think there's a lot of work to do with them, really. What I found is some of them need like a piece of sandpaper on a flat table and kind of like sand them down to get like a nice flat bottom to them. But generally I don't find there's a lot of work needed really to them. Certainly not the ones I've had anywhere. Plays Next Side says, I'm almost done painting these Legion minis for May the 4th bundle, and then it's either tackle the Armada starter set or the Marvel starter set. That's nice. You got a few things to look forward to, mate. Clavak said he's built some ships from Warlord's Black Seas. Very pretty and fun with the sails and rigging and that. So Armada, Kings of War Armada, is based upon the Black Sails rules. They basically went into a partnership with Warlord and basically adapted their rule system. So if you've played Black Seas, you'll be kind of familiar with, or if you like Armada, it will be familiar if you've played Black Seas. They've essentially simplified some of the rules, and then obviously put the fantasy spin on it with sort of flying sort of dragons and stuff, and magic and that kind of stuff as well. For me personally, the historical aspect is less important to me. I quite like the fantasy aspect of it. NSG saying scrimmage games. Does that you mean skirmish games, mate? Other way. Silverbane, Kill Team 5 Parsecs. I like skirmish games, but there are other games I like as well. John says that's the plot of the Lego movie. It is actually, mate, isn't it? And I forgot about that. But yeah, there was a point where I kind of like, I was thinking like these. I think it was because it was Star Wars stuff, and I had my own kind of like personal kind of childhood. Like if I was a kid with like with Lego Star Wars, imagine what I'd like, how happy I'd have been. And I almost wanted to kind of build them and display them and stuff. But I was thinking if they were mine, I might have done it. But they weren't mine. They were the kids. They were bought for the kids for Christmas, and it's like, God, like get a grip of yourself. That's our little lord. Jessica saying, so it was Hypnotoad all along. I think it probably was, mate. Yeah. Mark Zielinski, hello mate, how you doing? He says, make sure you wash the resin Armada ships first. Yeah, you have to wash any resin miniatures first. Thomas is saying, I'm a fly fisher. I use my fly stuff to rig the Black Sea ships. Do you not get the rigging stuff with it, mate? Thomas is saying the resin ships with tin masts are pain in the ass. Tin masts? Tin masts? I haven't seen anything with tin masts, mate. Lord Maiden says, do you mean tiny ones, maybe? Tiny masts, maybe. I'm not sure. Lord Maiden saying, so my Empire of Dust Armada ships keep having bits breaking off them, but it was the tiny parts like the tops of staffs and the ballista heads. I've got the Empire of Dust stuff, mate. I don't think anything snapped off them. I'm pretty sure they haven't anyway. Just saying, yo, Sander, bottom flat. That's it, mate. Give it a good scrub on some sandpaper. Spiderlords, I've been doing some gunpla. I don't know what that is, mate, because I broke my hand and couldn't paint. Crazy value for money. I don't know what that is, mate. Tavinda says it's unreal how strong the marketing push for Horus Heresy is. I've almost found myself following it, but won't. Hello, Tavinda, by the way. There has been a particularly strong push this time. I mean, GW had that. They had their like Horus Heresy open day. They obviously invited creators from all over the world to talk about it. Had them painting stuff. So they've managed to kind of drip feed stuff. We're starting to see all those creators now uploading their all of the content that they made while they were there. I mean, from a purely kind of with my marketing head on, I think they've done a really good job of it. But I must admit, it's kind of like, I'm not personally that interested in it. It's becoming a bit relentless now, to be fair. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a box with 2 lots of Space Marines in it. It's not really groundbreaking. The rules haven't really changed as far as I can tell. They're essentially still, is it 7th edition, 40k? So it does feel a little bit like money for old rope, but that's just me. Where was this one? Mini Warmut says, just imagine Armada bust out a halfling navy, rowboats. Hey, I tell you what, mate, you might just get that one. Players in Exile says Gundam plastic kits. Oh, okay, mate. Yeah, Gundams kind of goes over my head a little bit. White metal tin. I've not seen any with tin masts, mate. I wonder if it's a completely different game we're talking about there. Spylord says technology is insane. Plastics that even put GW to shame. Yeah, I saw a model build on a YouTube video the other week, which was an Iron Man model, and it was all pre-colored, like pre-sprayed plastic bits, and the quality of it was amazing. But yeah, the Gundam stuff's never really. I'm not really into kind of like the mechs and stuff. Spylord saying, yeah, fully movable articulated parts on the sprue. Okay. Foible says, since I built my Space Marine army, I feel like it's going to be out of date within a year if I don't keep up with releases. I think that is psychologically self-imposed by surrounding yourself online with competitive player chatter. I think that's what it is, because at the end of the day, you will still be able to play that stuff. If you've got a Space Marine army from like 10 years ago, you can generally still play it. Do you know what I mean? It's just that you might not have the latest model, or you might not have the latest builds, but then it depends upon who you're playing against. And I think that the community has almost built this kind of attitude of, you have to keep up with the meta, you have to have the latest stuff. Like, if you don't follow the latest trends, you're not kind of like, you're not in the conversation, if you like. And I think we, and I include myself in this, we as a big community have almost kind of created that, I think. Yeah, Players in Exile saying something similar there. Plenty of people playing 10 or 20-year-old Space Marine armies. Just saying, yeah, Adam Savage is a legend. His videos with Terry English making armor is awesome. Yeah, I like some of his stuff, mate. I like some of his stuff. So, folks, I think we're going to kind of start to wrap that one up now, really. I'd thank every single one of you who've been in tonight. It's been a good night. We've had some good numbers in tonight. We'll see how this video does over time and stuff. It's nice to have these kind of chats now and again where we're just, you know, like there's no anger in the chat, there's no animosity, nobody's bashing anything. We're just having a civilized kind of discussion about stuff. Like, this is always what my stuff tends to be about. I'm not really about kind of like sort of, you know, like there shouldn't be any negativity. I just wanted to kind of explore this as a topic based upon the comment that was in the Facebook group at the weekend, and it was purely around that kind of like, I've never really heard this. I've heard this conversation many times before. I've even had that kind of conversation myself, but I've never heard anybody talking about it from any other game outside of Games Workshop products. And I just wanted to kind of explore it and see what people thought. And it's interesting that we kind of maybe got to a point where it's almost like do we do it to each other? Do we create the fear of missing out? It's got nothing to do with Games Workshop. It's got nothing to do with the products. It's got nothing to do with the game. Is it just like there is this whole mob mentality where we all like, if you want to be part of the gang, you got to keep up kind of thing? Clavac saying, great chat. Thank you very much, mate. Tabletop Ramble is saying, cheers, stay happy and healthy. You too, buddy. And I think on that note, I think we'll round it out. I've got a video that's kind of in the background, which I uploaded on Friday and had to take down again for reasons. So there is video in the bank there waiting to go, and I'm off to Steamforge Games this week to do some filming with them ahead of the Creator Clash for God Tier that I'm doing in a few weeks' time. So hopefully, I'm going there on Thursday, I think it is. I'm not sure if I'll get the video out on Friday or not. It depends how much footage I film, but there'll certainly be some footage coming up. And I've got another hospital appointment tomorrow, so I'm kind of out of action for a bit of time tomorrow. So other than that, I will try my best to get some extra content up. It's a bit of a funny week. I'm travelling around. Steamforge is obviously in Manchester, and I'm up in Newcastle, so it's kind of like a 3.5 hour drive down there, and then a 3.5 hour drive home. So that kind of day is a bit of a write-off. But yeah, we'll see what we can pull together. I've got some other stuff running, kind of being filmed and recorded in the background as I go. So yeah, hopefully we'll get that one up soon. So take care, folks, and I will see you all next Monday. Don't forget, the painting challenge closes on Sunday, so next Monday's live stream we'll be looking at all the community submissions. So take care, folks.